we'll get started. Because you guys have had a lot of time out there to provide some input initially. We're going to, Nicole's going to walk you through the presentation and then have more time to catch up afterward. But first of all, welcome and thank you all for coming out. Exciting time, another exciting step for this neighborhood, River North, and the surrounding neighborhoods, and kind of all of NBCC in the city. Because River North Park will be, one of the few new parks along the river corridor. It's the outcome of a lot of hard work over the last number of years, based on the River North Vision Master Plan that was generated a number of years ago with Parks and Rec and Greenway Foundation and others. And it's kind of a continuation of a lot of the efforts to reclaim the plat over a number of years. And what's most significant, obviously for this area, is that in the River North neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods, is that it will be one of the first new kind of neighborhood parks along the river to come online since the Cuernavaca Park and Commons Park south of here. So welcome and thank you all for coming out. I am Todd Winskoski. I am Deputy Director of the North Denver Cornerstone Collaborative. We were established, I'll just give a super quick update. About 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, by Mayor Hancock to focus in this area on these neighborhoods in National Western because it was part of his larger vision for the corridor of opportunity all the way from the airport to downtown, connecting passengers from DIA down to the US. And this area offered a tremendous opportunity to align 6 major projects. So we were put in place to kind of help lead on behalf of Mayor Hancock all of that and work with all the stakeholders to create the vision for this area. As I said, the park project will be, it's in the River North area, as you know, which is one of our 6 major focus areas, but it will be kind of the first major kind of green and open space and park project as a part of the initiative, so hugely important. We're extraordinarily excited for the process, and tonight, because it's kind of the kickoff. For those of you who've been involved in most of our other efforts, we have numerous public meetings and ways to engage, so this is kind of the first step in the process with the park. Nicole's going to walk you through the schedule, but similar to Brighton, the neighborhood plans we've just generated for Global Area Swansea, National Western Center, and everything else we're doing down here, we will be back continuously. So feel free to contact me directly, or more specifically for this project, work through Nicole, Parks and Rec staff, and their team with it. This parking project wouldn't be possible, without Parks and Rec. I mean, they're a co-leader on this and a partner in this. And thanks to their hard work years ago to develop that plan I mentioned, they also were able to capture this land and get it through some GoCo funds that they received. So thanks to them, we're here to kind of help facilitate their vision and partner with them on this. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole and let her talk about the fun stuff. So thank you.
So our agenda tonight, we're going to share with you what we've heard so far. We're going to talk a little bit about the project overview and the project potentials that are boards out in the other room. And then we'll do a question and answer session. But what we really want to hear tonight is your input and feedback and get that from you. So whether it's through the Q&A or through writing things down, that's our main agenda. So as part of our visioning process, we went out into the community and talked to the 9-to-5 professionals, residents, the occasional visitor, and put together a video that captures some of the big vision thoughts of what people were talking about. And we're going to share that video with you first, and then I'll get to the rest of the presentation.
Tell me what makes this place special to you.
It's a really great industrial area that has access to all the supply houses and to the highways and to downtown.
It's awesome because it's providing jobs, plus it's providing a little bit of housing.
A lot of industry, a lot of arts, a lot of startup businesses. It has its own sort of culture.
Number of small businesses, people starting their first business here.
The people and how close they are to each other.
What makes this community special to me is the diversity.
What's nice about this area is that it is growing, and the artists that are really wanting to stay here are really adding, that's something that makes this the art district.
You have art studios, you have the little bar.
All the young business people just trying to like come out and do stuff on their own.
Well, this building has 60 artists or small businesses in it, and it's just a great collaborative space.
What would be your vision for the future of this community?
It would just be a mixed-use industrial residential area that just reinventing public space with parks and live-work type situations.
Grocery store. What's already been put in place with a lot of artists, a lot of entrepreneurs.
An area for kids to play.
I would love to see more of an outreach to the people who have lived here for a very long time.
The people that are impoverished and that's on fixed income, more resources.
More community events and where people can get out and meet each other.
What would you like to see remain the same?
The people.
Well, hopefully they keep some of the older buildings, that are here instead of tearing them all down.
Making sure that the turnover doesn't happen so fast. Like you ruin the character of what made it the neighborhood in the first place.
My initial attraction to this neighborhood was that it had an industrial, gritty feel to it.
This is the art district, and all of a sudden they can't afford to work here anymore.
It's still being created, and that authenticity will hopefully last.
So many people are focused on making cities livable and really lose sight of the fact that the real aim should be to make them lovable. I think that's part of what the arts can do.
And finally, would you share what your vision is for the River North Park green space?
Clean water. At the Platte River, it's kind of dirty and clean, but I just want it full clean.
Having more events that bring the business community and the artistic community and the neighborhood community together.
Classes on how to build things like basic carpentry, basic gardening, just like these skills that you don't know you need.
A learning event, coding camp with kids, and then have music be a part of it and let the kids express themselves through art.
So like a farmer's market, an urban garden.
I'd love to see it have not a playground feel to it, but more of an artistic play area, so to speak. Sculptures, a space where people can come in and present anything from a farmer's market to artist displays.
A lot of open room for people to just have picnics and family time there.
It could be relaxing. I could take a nap.
A safe place because it is calm, relaxing, fun, where you don't have to worry about nothing and get your mind off things.
I don't want shops. I want a green area, and people can just go there and sit around and just enjoy the Denver Park scene.
Are you aware of the Platte River?
Yes.
And do you go there?
I've been there once.
A redeveloped Platte River would be an asset for us.
Would you go there?
Yeah, I would.
Like benches on that bridge, and we can see the sunset.
People like this river, man. They like to bike it and they jog it. It's natural.
I personally would think your green space would benefit the people as far as allowing them to come together, that word diversity, music, a festival-like atmosphere, and it would give the people within the high-rises a place to come together.
So do some of you hear things in that resonate with you? Does it seem like it captures the community's thoughts? So we're here tonight to talk about the future River North Park, which a lot of you saw on the maps. That's at 35th and Arpins, and also the future promenade that's going to, what we're looking at is from 29th to 38th Avenue, or 38th Street. So the star on this map shows where Summit Church is, where we are tonight, and that outreach that we did for visioning, we went to Globeville, we went to Elyria, Swansea, we went to the Cole neighborhood in 5 Points, and all of those are within a mile radius of the park site. And some of them are harder to get to River North when you're in Globeville or you're in Elyria, Swansea, but it was still important to us as this park gets built that those people, we start making connections to those neighborhoods, and as this becomes a new kind of park, it might attract more than just who's in River North right now. Oh, I keep pressing the wrong way. So this shows just everything that's happening. There's a lot of development going around the park site, and the promenade as Arkansas Court gets redefined. It'll have traffic from 29th up to 33rd-ish, and then no traffic from 33rd to 38th. So there's a lot of potentials for what the promenade could become as well. A lot of you might have been involved in 2012 when there were initial concepts done for River North Park, and what we're doing tonight and through this process is a continuation of those plans that were done, seeing if what was heard back then is the same vision now, and moving forward with that conversation. So today, that was 2012, we're in 2015 right now, we're doing visioning, we're getting your feedback through the boards out there. We'll take that and put together alternatives that we'll share in October, and then come up with a preferred plan towards the end of the year in December. And then the park has funding to get built in 2017 is the estimated time. There's $3.9 million that's funded for the park. And the promenade has funding just to go through that conceptual design through the end of the year. And then funding for that will hopefully come in after there's some ideas. Did I skip a slide there? Maybe not. The adjacent projects that are next to the park are one reason why 2017 is the end goal. Brighton Boulevard that Todd talked about is going to get built before the park gets built. Festival Street, which you see here, borders the park between Great Divide and the park. That needs to get built before the park can get built because of a lot of grade and topographic changes that happen there. So this is River North Park's site, its footprint. It's 3.5 acres. It has 2 buildings on it right now, the EEB building that the city calls the police building, and there's also the interstate trucking building. And so we're looking at both of those buildings as part of the process of what can happen there. Do they stay? Do they get removed? Do they get repurposed in different ways? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Brian, are there slides that are skipping? I don't... Oh, there we go. There. Sorry, I knew that slide was there. Maybe I'll just let you guys handle that. So the video that you just saw, we took those themes and those big ideas that we heard and we organized them into sentiments that we were hearing from the community. And the biggest one was safe, calm, and clean. And what that really was saying was that people wanted this park to be someplace that was safe, that they felt that they could protect, they would be protected there, they could keep other people from abusing the park. And that's something that I think resonates through all of the different boards that you saw in the room as you were putting your stickers up. The other big thing was a maker space, that it was about cooperative learning and having classrooms and spaces for artists to make things was a big theme that we heard. And inclusive, that it involved the surrounding communities, different age groups, everyone from elderly to kids, that this was a park that was a place for everyone. So the next slide. And that's what started us thinking about this framework for the park, that it's a new 21st century park, and what does that mean? And it's a flexible space that could have lots of different things, and the metaphor of the sandbox, the stage, the lab, and the river, and I'll talk through what each one of those means. So the sandbox is the first one, and as you saw, there's 8 boards out there, and there's more images than what's in the PowerPoint, but I just picked a few to kind of give the idea of what we're talking about. The play is more free play. It's not necessarily a catalog playground equipment, but maybe it's play that's made by artists, or is it the creative play of a slide that that's used in a different way, or the illuminated swings that could be made by artists and it's an installation. Games was one of them that was up there. And this doesn't necessarily mean that it's ping pong, but it's the idea of different kinds of games and what things could those be, and what is it that you want to see, what activities is it that you want to do there. And there was even one on that board that shows the beach, and that was it's a project in Toronto that they actually have sand in a park, which is pretty cool. And how can we think outside of the box about what a 21st century park could be? Next slide. So the stage is kind of the same thing, a flexible space for cultural events, for entertainment events. Is there a movie screen that shows on one of the walls of the buildings, or is there a performance space that has these hanging LED lights, or is it an open lawn? It could be a lot of different things, and that's what we want to hear from you. The lab is the idea of arts and classes and education, and how can you go there and make things at the site. So one thing that we heard a lot through the visioning outreach was bike repair stations, or places where you could learn from others how to make things. So that could be what the lab is. It could also be artist expressions, that maybe it's rotating art installations that happen on the site. A library was another thing that we heard, and how can, is it one of the buildings, or is it something creative that we think of a library in a different way? And then river is so important that this project is right along the South Platte, although it's up higher and there's constraints with infrastructure and utilities that don't allow us necessarily to make a physical connection to the river. But how can we bring the river into the park in different ways? And is that through nature and cottonwood groves and the ecology of the South Platte River, or is it through quiet water channels, like we're really bringing a water feature into the park? Or could it be stormwater and that idea of how we can clean water before it goes into the South Platte and make that an experiential environment? And the buildings, so there's 2 of them, and this board shows the interstate trucking building, which is the smaller building on the middle of the site, and then the police service building, which is the big building on 35th. And so there's a board out there that really think about what these buildings could be. They don't have to stay how they are. Is there a creative way to deconstruct them that maybe it's they have, it's like the flexible space of an event space, or do the roof structures stay and things hang from the roofs and you have hammocks and swings in there, or lots of different things that we can imagine for what those buildings could be. Do they become pavilions, or are they removed and we put up new buildings? Or are they removed and it's open space and more green space? There's a character board out there. So this is more about, and we heard this through the visioning, but I think we just want to reinforce that this is how everybody's thinking, this industrial, gritty neighborhood, and is that the character of the park, or is what people are thinking more of a refined urban park? Or is it natural? Or is it playful and colorful with the image of the the lights hanging, and it's a place that you can go to at night. And then the promenade, I'll talk a little bit about the big vision of this is for the city and for NDCC, that it starts actually at Commons Park and in the future goes all the way up to Riverside Cemetery and opens up to the open space in Adams County. So this becomes a place for the city and the residents to really connect all the way along the South Platte River, and it has these nodes along the promenade, whether they're public or private. They can be a lot of different things, but River North Park becomes one of those nodes and really starts to become this stopping point along the ribbon of the promenade. And so where the promenade is in Commons Park, that's already been programmed, but for River North in the section that we're looking at, that still has opportunities for what kinds of activities can happen there. Whether it's art installations and they're rotating or they're permanent, or is it gathering spaces, or is this really something that has river overlooks and we make stronger connections to the South Platte River. And then the character. So similar to the character of the park, the character of the promenade may be different along different stretches. So when we've asked you out there and on the survey to put dots or vote for things that you want, it's not necessarily one thing. It can be different things along different stretches to reflect different areas. So is it park-like in some areas? Is it more natural in others? Is it urban and refined in other areas? So hopefully a lot of you have already been out there and seen the boards and written ideas down on the paper, on the sticky notes, and we'll photograph all of that and document it. Take the results from the dot voting that you're doing tonight. There's a website that we've got that's it's RiNoParkDenver.com. You can take the survey on there. You can see the video that we played tonight. You can tell your friends and have them participate too. And we'll have that open for the survey for the next 3 to 4 weeks as we're gathering information to put together alternatives that we'll come back and share in October. We also have the hashtag. We have a hashtag. I'm not that savvy, but hashtag RiNo Park. So if there's images that you see that you think this is really something great that we want to have in the park, put it on Instagram, put it on Facebook. We'll be checking that as well. So the next meeting is in October. We're taking the input. We'll put alternatives together and hopefully capture thoughts that you guys have and then develop that into a preferred plan for the end of the year. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions if you have any, or have us go back out and keep dot voting. Yep.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Part of the initial River North Park working with Simcox, there's the notion of along this river promenade that you have a string of pearls and parks. And we haven't mentioned Globeville at all. And then there's the future Toronto market where CMO Success, that's their design. Globeville Park is also, I think, pending some upgrades to drainage, et cetera, et cetera. So the notion that those have programming or no programming already, and we consider those as part of this network, that why would you have a whole bunch of open space within the park when you have ample open space at Global Landing? And to get people to utilize all three of the network,
yeah.
I think it's a really important thing.
I think, so his comment was that he felt that Globeville Landing is missing from the discussion, and the park that's going to be, the open space that's going to be at Denargo Market. And it does show up on our plan. The promenade portion that we're really focused on is connecting those two pieces, and River North Park being a node, one of the nodes of those three. So you're right, it's not missing, it's part of the conversation. I didn't talk about it, but yeah, that's very important. Yep.
You mentioned something about access to the river. So do you guys foresee there not being direct access to the river as part of the park design?
So the question was about access to the river and if that's something that we foresee being as part of the park design. The park, we're envisioning stage right now, and we definitely want to look at it, and it's important. I think it's really important to make connections from the promenade to the South Platte Trail, and potentially to have places along there that you can actually get into the water. Our funding for the park is probably not as great as something that you'd have to be able to get into the floodplain and do that work, but that doesn't mean that we can't look big picture and think about those ideas as part of this process, but it may not be something that gets built right now. Yeah.
I didn't see.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Throughout the boards and specifically the sandbox area, I didn't see a ton of active endeavors, and certainly one of the community was expressing safety and like tranquility, it seemed. I was wondering that if the tranquility would override if there was a community desire for active spaces like basketball courts, or in my case, a skate park, or if everything's on the table right now.
Well, you gave me the easy out of everything's on the table right now. Everything is on the table right now. I mean, we want your ideas, you know, and we talked a little bit about this out there. If a skate park or a skate plaza is something that you're interested in having, we need to hear that, and we need to balance all of the feedback that we get too with every, like this other gentleman said, the other parks that are happening as well. So what programming might happen here, and what's happening on the I-70 lid, and what's happening in Globeville. We want to get all the input for ideas that people want, and whether it happens exactly at this park or there may be a better space for it. I don't have the answer to that yet, but everything's on the table, if that's helpful.
That's perfect.
I don't want to rain on your park project because I think it's an amazing project, but I've been in this neighborhood for a long time, and I watched them build a park in front of the rescue mission, and the next thing you know, everybody was sleeping in that park, and then they turned it into a closed-off urban garden. I watched the city put a bunch of money into Sunny Lawson Park, and I don't know if any of you have driven by there lately, but it's a new camping ground. So my question to you is, there's issues of public toilets, of lighting to keep people safe, security and maintenance involved in creating a big park like this. And I didn't see a lot of that addressed out there. And one thing that I would like to see considered is the potential of a new cop shop being put in to oversee the fact that we're going to have thousands of new residents moving into this area, and when you have something like that in any large urban environment, you start to run into a lot more petty crime, and we definitely have this homeless issue that we're dealing with in Denver, and I want to know how the park is going to address keeping it, like you said, 33% safe, calm, and clean.
It was on the pie chart, and it does show that that's something that's very important to the community, and how the park gets programmed and used. And you're talking about that. You know, what are the activities that happen in these buildings if they stay that provide more eyes on the park? I know the city and the Parks Department is doing a lot to address the homelessness issue in different ways, and that's part of what they're doing, and we're it's a Gordon can maybe help me, but it's the both and. You know, you've got to build the park and program it and have it exciting and a place where people want to be, and then that maintenance and addressing the homelessness issue is something I know you guys are always dealing with. So, yeah.
I was trying to observe without being called out. But, my name is Gordon Robertson, Director of Park Planning, and I think your comment is heard, which is the purpose of tonight, and we're going to go back and think about that. I know that the building that we have on site that we want to, I think we want to keep, we're open to your ideas, but I think it should be a community space, and if it can be a community-led and community-run space, that building could be eyes and ears for the park, and that's certainly something we've thought about. But we're open to your ideas about how to do that. There's a district in place, or going to be in place soon, and potentially the district could have some oversight of the park as well. Does that address?
I know that there's not a foolproof solution for this, but I just want to make sure that that's unclear. Did you give advice for all of that?
I know there's not a foolproof solution for this problem. I'm not asking you guys to give me some sort of guarantee, but I'm just hoping that you're considering things like, for instance, I own a couple commercial properties, and my alley used to have a lot of activity in it. And I spend the money to light and motion detector the alley, and I spend the money every other week cleaning it up, including things, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, human feces, all right? So I do spend the money and the time to make sure that happens, and because I've been doing that for the past year, my alley has remained fairly clean. So I guess you're right, it does take a lot of vigilance, but it also takes things like security lighting, potential of toilets, to keep this a beautiful, safe environment for years to come.
And those are great comments, and we have a great designer to think about those things. I will say that eyes and ears on the park is key in lighting. The other thing, though, is making it a park you all want to be at, and making it a park you love and the space that you want to protect. So the better we can get your input and make it a space you want to be in a lot, the more people are not going to want to hang out there and do things that are detrimental.
I was just going to add, Erica, our communications director, just mentioned to me that for those of you who saw earlier, actually the sergeant from the local district office was here intentionally, actually, to kind of be part of the process from the beginning to help, I think, provide input on the design, as it moves forward based on their experience with Sunny Lawson and others. So I think that's, I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation, but that was a great indication that having them there, because they have certainly have a different perspective than I do, and even some of the residents do, so it's great to have them at the table as well.
So I'm over in Globeville, and I just want to say I appreciate the concepts of 21st century, 22nd. Please don't. But I kind of like prehistoric parks, and I would like to invite everybody to go out to Golden on a hot day and go down by Clear Creek and look at the people playing on their tubes, all kinds of people. It's not built up right to the edge. It's kind of a natural state. There's a waterfront there that arises out of the Colorado terrain, and it's what a neighborhood needs in a lot of ways, but it's really attractive to people that are passing through too. So I'm hoping myself down in Globeville, as we get going with the National Western River, and we get the Globeville side and all that, I'm hoping that we have a playground that is of general interest, and I think it's a fantastic thing. So with all of, I didn't quite see that element, and I guess the way I'll get to that question here is, can you talk a little bit about the timeline on the water quality becoming something that can truly be recreatable? And I know that Aurora has this really great 6-filter machine where they use our water as drinking water, and we can't even put our toes in without worrying about what's going to grow in it sometimes. So we've got, we've got this nice, beautiful stretch, and can you just kind of comment on that? Because I hope that that it starts to feel like a recreational area that is very attached to nature and isn't just an open space that's, but I like a lot of these things too that we have in here. And then lastly, I just want to say that the network of parks in Globeville, Larry, and Swansea is a really wonderful thing, and RiNo, and coming into the direction we're going to be able to take in people from the north, south, east, and west from the neighborhoods. So there's going to be a lot of reasons to that can be valuable. So I just want to ask you to comment on that.
I guess I don't know the timing per se of water quality and stormwater in parks, but I think this is an opportunity to push things in that direction if that's the feedback that we hear. And it's not going to be drinking water safe. I guess when we talk about stormwater and water quality, it's providing plants that help make it cleaner, but it's never going to get clean like a 6-machine facility. But yeah.
So I had a question. Sorry.
I really need my sunglasses.
So I had a question in terms of, there was a lot of work that went into that video that was put together, and a lot of that content was captured by going on the streets, walking up to people, talking to them, taking the pictures and doing the interviews. And that's really crucial because, you know, there's a website and there's a hashtag, and that's all great for the people in the room, but people in the neighborhoods, a lot of them don't have computers. They may not have a smartphone. They may just have a regular mobile phone. They may not have internet. So, you know, how do you go about staying connected to the community as you're getting closer to 2015 and as even after the park is open, and so you can continue to support the community and deliver what people are looking for?
That's a great question. So what we're doing right now is we are building what I'm calling communication strategies so that we can reach out to people where they are on the street at different venues around that are analog. So people can write, they can draw, they can mark, they can leave their ideas, their visioning. There can be this communication that's going on, and then part of this process is how do we create a communication device system that becomes community owned. So after the project is done, there is a vehicle that I won't have anything to do with it, but well, what does the community, how do the people that are using the space or living in the community, how is it used in this way? So that's a great question, and that is something that is aggressively being addressed right now.
This is to sort of piggyback off of that last question, but also within the neighborhood, I think it's really important to consider the neighborhood dynamic. And within the neighborhood, there's a ton of schools, there are a lot of youth organizations, and I'm curious if that has been taken into consideration in terms of incorporating specifically preteen and teenager youth engagement in the park, maybe to foster ownership by them, for them, so that it is a productive place to go and have activities that they are interested in because they originally began with, they started it.
It's happening, yeah.
I'm sorry, thank you. My name is Laura Curry. I'm a consultant to Wenck & Associates, and I'm here for the community engagement. Thank you. There were visioning sessions done at the 3 community centers that are in the communities that are involved. We are engaging a curriculum right now with a, where are you? I know you're here. There you are. That's for 7th graders, I think, right? And then I'm also working to get some students on the steering committee. So that's very much part of the deal. So it doesn't become like one specific sector. Good question, thank you.
Hi, how's it going? Loving all the art-focused stuff. Art Center, fantastic. Reuse, save the building, awesome. One thing I'm kind of missing is there's an incredible amount of wildlife on this river. This morning I saw a white heron just standing there hanging out, so I would love to see more planning or thoughts towards sort of the wildlife that's there. Every winter during around October, the geese migrate here. Sometimes we have over 1,000 geese that park themselves right in that river because I think it's probably one of the warmest spots. So think about those kinds of things I encourage you to do. I also encourage you to, I love what I'm seeing, I think that push it even further, you know, see more about innovation. You know, we really want this park to be something interesting that is nowhere else on the planet. So that's a little bit of a challenge for you. But I think also, no pressure. So anyways, also I have a few questions on the festival street, kind of what that means, what it is. You know, we are getting kind of an influx of public events in RiNo, and they are impacting the neighborhood quite immensely. So I would imagine this is maybe where a lot of those events will be landing. And again, I have the same issues as Taya said about safety and lighting and all those kinds of things. So I don't know if that's too many questions, but.
Well, Festival Street is actually, it's a different project, although they relate and interrelate so closely, and we're going to be working with them throughout the process to make sure, you know, that there's plaza spaces in the park, hopefully that can support, that will support Festival Street. So since we don't have designs yet, I don't have the answer to that, but it's happening, it's going to happen, and the wildlife, I think that's great. We'll take that comment and go with it. And a park like nowhere else, was that your other question? I hope we can do that, gosh. Parks has said that to us too, no pressure, right?
Hi. So I just wanted to reinforce this being the art district, and I know you guys were thinking a lot about this, but the idea that arts and creativity is really the soul of this place, and this park can really be kind of a center for the neighborhood, I think, in a way in which the neighborhood understands itself. And I think really focusing on arts and creativity, and the arts and everything that means, you know, from visual art to music to dance, performance, all those things. I feel like that's the central piece that can address a lot of the questions tonight. So everything from how do kids get involved to how do we keep it safe. I think a lot of that is programming the park and, you know, having the kind of natural programming built into the park such that people are there and they're owning that place. I think, you know, this idea of makers being engaged. And so the more that that can really be focused on and almost be the center of the identity for the place, I think the more that that can guide a lot of what you guys are doing. And just thinking about how that affects every piece of these different elements of the park that we've talked about.
Great.
Hi. I would just like to say, here representing an Annunciation, we're a small inner city Catholic school not far, and as a science teacher, I would first just like to compliment the staff on their openness to working with the community. I sent them an email and they were really quick to reach out to me and to meet with me and to talk about ways we could get 7th graders involved in this process. So I would first like to say that they have done an outstanding job, I think, in being responsive to the needs of the community, so compliments to all of you. The second is more just to ask you to talk about it a little bit. When we talked earlier this week, you had talked about ways, and for me as the science teacher, I think is interesting, that natural features, because we mentioned nature, we mentioned clean water, that natural features can be used to cleanse stormwater, and that there's some really neat ecology that goes into that. When people see a basketball court, it's really obvious what that's used for, but when people see a water feature, they may not understand right away that, wow, this water feature is actually designed to cleanse a lot of the water that comes off of our streets before it goes into the river. I was wondering if you could just talk a bit about that, because I think that could breed appreciation among people that maybe don't know it right away. Could you talk more about that?
I wish I could just repeat what I said to you earlier this week, but I mean, and we talked about this, I think there is a lot of opportunity to hear to, you know, how Festival Street, there's there's 35th Street, there's 33rd. You know, how can we capture some of that water that's going into the South Platte River and make it visible, and kind of like, as these kids are interested in that, tell them the story about cleaning the water and where this is going, and what stormwater can be a very beautiful thing if it's done well, and it's hard to do it well. I think that might be a little bit of a stigma to something like that, but I think there's opportunity here to look at that and make it present in the park. So, does that make sense? Is that okay? I think I'm gonna dismiss, I don't know, questions in the classroom, dismiss the Q&A, go back out there, give us your comments. If you heard something in the questions and answers that you really liked, write it down, let us know what you're thinking, send us an email, lots of ways to get in touch with us. Thanks.